Rey Skywalker, how far you have fallen.
Hey, I'm Lewis on CreateAnything, and today I'm going to talk about how Rey Palpatine has left no important mark upon us.
So first, we'll go through episode 7 and 8, and then we'll compare it to 9, and we'll talk about why it has left no mark. So at one point, Rey and Finn, they're running through Jakku, and they're trying to find a ship to escape the planet, and they come across the Millennium Falcon. Dun, 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 dun. But how do they expect to fly this? How could some scavenger who's lived on this planet her whole entire life be able to fly the Millennium Falcon? I don't know. She knows, though. So she decides to go fly it, and there's no explanation why at any point in this movie how she's able to fly this. Maybe you could say she's flown other things, but we need some explanation that could explain why she's able to fly this. She's already too good at something, and there's more instances later on in this movie. Plus, people say the novelization explains it, but this is the movie. You can't go explain stuff later in a novelization. People are here to watch episode 7, not episode novelization 7. Later in the movie, you find out that she has force powers. She's aware of them. But the thing that's crazy about it is she just somehow knows how to do them. I mean, if she had had some prior knowledge that we'd known about the Jedi, and she's like read a book about their powers, then after realizing that she has powers, I could see that maybe she would know how to just try it. But she literally tries a Jedi mind trick out of nowhere. It doesn't make any sense. I mean,
in the end of episode 7, Rey fights Kylo Ren, and Kylo Ren should have won. I know that he's a little bit injured, but Rey is not trained as much as he has his whole entire life. Plus, even though Rey's ridiculously strong because she's a Palpatine, she shouldn't know how to control her powers at this point as well as she can, and Kylo should be able to beat her in combat. So she's already too good at the Force and combat as well. I know she's trained on Jakku, but Kylo's been training since who knows. Also though, I know she didn't look like she was definitely winning that fight, but you didn't sense the actual danger she would lose, and she ends up not losing, which she should be losing. Alright. Alright, I'm done talking about that movie. So let's go! In episode 8,
she then goes to meet Luke, which is the sickest thing ever, going to see Luke Skywalker, and she goes to train with him. But the problem with their training is, 1, they don't really do that much training. 2, it's almost as if that training there was just to realize how strong she was, but in reality, she doesn't come out of there having gained much knowledge from Luke besides maybe 1 or 2 things. There was no full training from her, so she could become that awesome Jedi. And somehow she comes out of there stronger. Now I won't say she's definitely stronger like that, but she comes out of there, haven't really learned much, and then at the end has not lost a battle still. Somehow, once again, manipulating the Force in a way where she's like ridiculous. Now, I will get to that later because it makes sense how strong she is, but that's for something later. But it's just the way she's able to do things, the way, like, without having much knowledge to them, just doing them to just do them, not developing her prowess, not developing anything about her Force powers. Before going into episode 9, the final closing thoughts about 7 and 8 combined with Rey is, as some people would say it, she was just a vessel speaking lines for the plot. She was really just driving the plot along, but you didn't really feel as if you knew Rey. You didn't feel as if Rey was somebody you could relate to. Which is why, going into episode 9, I'm happy because it changes things for her character. But it also leaves a mark that has not been accentuated to its fullest potential. I really enjoyed Rey's character in episode 9 because you actually felt the development. You felt her have to go through every struggle. You felt her fully, what's the word? She's really tackling on the problems she had with figuring out who she was, not just who her family was, because she's already figured that out, but how to deal with it, how to handle it, how to move on as a person, how to get better, how to grow. She was actually having to do things, and you felt that way. Episode 8, yeah, you could see, she was kind of like, oh, my parents, who are they, blah, 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 but you didn't really feel it. Not like in episode 9, and even my buddies, we were talking about it too, like, this is the first movie where Rey actually had a character. Now, some people are going to disagree, obviously, but in reality, most people can go back and watch all 3 of these movies, and if you compare 7 and 8 to episode 9, you'll be able to see that Rey was a full-on character in 9. Full development, full issues, full-on just what a character should have. But in episode 7 and 8, you didn't feel it. You just felt like she was saying the lines, doing things, beating people, not losing, not really giving you much of a reason to care for her. At this point, before episode 9, people were rooting for Kylo because they were thinking he was the best character because, well, first of all, he did have the best development of all the movies, without a doubt. And people had given up on Rey. Your main character should not be given up on. I mean, that's just a fact. So now we get into why Rey's improvement has left no mark upon us. No important mark, I should say. Because 7 and 8, she didn't have much development. She was already ridiculously strong. I mean, ridiculous control of her powers. But then in 9, everything changed. All of a sudden, she couldn't control her powers. She couldn't control things. She had development. She had all of this. So at this point, people had given up on her. If on episode 7 and 8, they already given up on Rey,
It doesn't matter what happens in 9. It doesn't matter how much development she gets.
it's not as great as it could have been because Rey just now starting to get the improvement. Rey's now starting to show things that we want to see. But since that's the case, now this mark that she's left on us is not important at all. She hasn't left an influential or positive mark upon us that we could take into our lives and be like, yeah, this was an awesome character. I can really relate this to my life. In that sense, she didn't do that. I mean, think about it. Luke, he went through a transformation through all 3 movies. Rey, she didn't go through a transformation until just the last movie where she had to deal with some things that she changed. Obviously, it's not as big of a transformation as Luke, but think about that. It leaves no mark. So therefore, Rey's character really didn't rise to the potential she could have. When watching all these films again, comparing 7 and 8 to 9, you'll start to see that this isn't just a matter of opinion. Majority of what people are saying is a fact. You can watch 7 and 8 and see what Rey is lacking, and you can watch 9 and see how it's different and how she's changed and how it's better. And you can see why her influence has left no mark upon us that is really worth revisiting. Like I said I would come back to her strength. See, I'm perfectly fine with her having all that strength, all that massive force strength, being able to push things with ferocity, being able to have lightning, because she's a Palpatine, and that makes perfect sense. But what they should have done was they should have had her have to go through consequences throughout 7 and 8, having lack of control in her powers, something like that. So that way, she'd have to hone her skills, work on that strength, and become a true Jedi, as opposed to her just being in control the whole time, up until 9. You see what I'm saying? That was my video today, folks, and I'll see you next time.